I love you. I miss you. I want to see you. As the text showed up on her phone screen, Lexy's heart skipped a beat and a wave of excitement washed over her. She hadn't heard from or seen her boyfriend, Jack, in nearly 2 months, due to the fact that he'd been away on a school trip, and the thought of seeing him again filled her with an intense desire. She wanted nothing more than to see him, hold him, touch him, kiss him, tell him that she loved him. She wanted nothing more but to see the man whom she was madly in love with. It was clear that Jack wasn't the only one who was missing her. She'd missed him, too. Lexy hovered her fingers over the phone screen, and soon enough, she began typing a reply, sending it a moment later. I've missed you too, Jack. Tell me where you want to meet and I'll be there. I can't wait to see you. Suddenly, Jack typed back a reply, telling her where to meet, and without hesitation, Lexy rushed upstairs to her room and began getting ready to meet him. All while she was getting ready, her heart continued to beat in her chest with excitement. She couldn't help herself. She hadn't seen him in 2 months. Lexy heaved a sigh as she slipped into a medium-length pink dress, then pulling her long dark hair back into a ponytail. Deep breaths, Lexy. Take nothing but deep breaths, she told herself. She then put on a pair of silver flats, grabbed a small black purse that was hanging on a peg by the door of her room, and headed out. She was ready at last. Lexy arrived at the park to already find Jack there, waiting for her. When they both saw each other, Lexy ran towards Jack and threw her arms around him. Jack, she exclaimed excitedly as she threw her arms around him. When she let go, Jack kissed her hard on the mouth. Lexy, he whispered against her skin. He then kissed her again, a kiss that was much more passionate than the first, and one which held all the I've missed yous into one single kiss. He felt warm under Lexy's skin, and he tasted sweet, the way she'd always known him to be. This was the Jack she was familiar with. Her Jack. They stood there kissing for a little bit longer before Jack finally broke away. He stared at Lexy with intent eyes this time, and a serious expression was plastered across his face. Seeing this, Lexy raised a confused eyebrow at him and glared at him as if to say, "What's wrong?" Jack suddenly began to look uncomfortable. His shoulders were hunched, and his body language was giving off the vibe that something wasn't right. He stayed silent for a few moments, and then, clearing his throat, he said in a serious voice, "I have something to tell you." Lexy didn't say anything in reply and just stared at him, eager to hear what he had to say. Jack paused for a moment, then continued on. His gaze remained on hers. "I would like to explain the reason why I've been gone, why you haven't seen me for nearly 2 months. Because, well, there's definitely a reason for it," he said, sighing just a little. Lexy continued to look at him with a confused expression on her face. What he just said had made no sense. Wasn't a school trip all it was? What did he mean by there definitely being a reason for it? She thought the school trip was all it was, but the way he was beginning to act around this topic confused her even more and worried her a little. What did he have to tell her that had him acting this uncomfortable? "But I thought the school trip..." He cut her off. "No, Lexy, it wasn't the school trip. In fact, there was never even a school trip." His gaze on her was hard right then. "What do you mean?" "I mean that I was gone for a completely different reason, and that a school trip was never involved." He paused again, slightly. He stared directly at the ground for a moment, then he returned his gaze towards her. "What I'm trying to say here is that all of that was a lie, a cover-up, and that what I'm about to tell you is much, much worse." As he said that, he began to grow visibly more uncomfortable. All the while, Lexy tried to mentally prepare herself for what he was about to say, although she had a hard time doing that because she didn't know what it was. She couldn't help but notice that Jack had begun shaking slightly, and without warning, he suddenly burst into tears. Lexy threw a comforting arm around his shoulder and led him over to a little bench where they both sat as she had her arm wrapped around him comfortingly while he cried. Lexy glared at him with a concerned expression on her face. "What's wrong, Jack?" she whispered, her voice coming out shakily, but only slightly. "Whatever it is, you can tell me. You can tell me anything." Jack hesitated for a moment. He wasn't looking at her. His gaze had returned to the floor. He stayed silent for several moments as he looked at the ground, and after what felt like a long time, he flickered his gaze towards her again. Tears were streaming down his face now, and the sight of seeing him like this tore at her heart like claws. She wished that she could remove the pain he was clearly feeling, but she couldn't. All she could do was listen. She could do nothing else. "Lex," he said finally, between his tears, "I don't want what I'm about to tell you to scare you away or anything, but I just need to get this off my chest." He suddenly paused, took a deep breath, and looked at her intently again. "Lex, I killed someone," he said sharply. He then burst into tears a second time, and showed no effort in concealing the sobs that followed afterward. "I killed someone," he repeated, still sobbing. "The reason I brought you here is so that I could tell you this. I killed someone, but not just someone, multiple people. He paused yet again, as if continuing on with the subject was hard for him, as if it were eating away at him, filling him with all sorts of guilt that he knew he couldn't escape from. Once he managed to compose himself, he spoke in a low, shaky whisper. I murdered 12 innocent people, and I don't know what came over me, but I just suddenly found myself with this intense desire to kill every person I saw. It was almost as if I couldn't help myself. I saw the most horrific images flash before my eyes. I saw myself doing horrible things to those people, killing them in various ways, and making sure that they really were dead and whatnot. It's a horrible, horrible thing to imagine. And I just lost it. Something in me snapped, and before I knew it, I was surrounded by 12 dead bodies, and my clothes were soaked with blood. He paused again, and Lexy, with her arms still wrapped around him, couldn't help but look at him with a horrified expression as a wave of shock washed over her. She wanted more than anything to comfort him, tell him that everything was going to be okay, but secretly, she didn't know if things were going to be okay. She didn't know what would become of Jack, given what he'd just told her, but she feared for it. A long moment of silence arose between the two of them, where none of them said a word, but Jack put an end to the silence by saying, "I think I'm going insane. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm unsure if it could possibly be schizophrenia or just hallucinations. But I do know one thing. This, Lex, all of this, is why you haven't seen me for 2 months. After the murders, I've been going into hiding. I don't want anyone to see me for the monster that I am. I don't want anyone to know about the horrible thing I have done. I don't want anyone but you to know of the images I see flash before my eyes, and about the voices I hear in my head urging me to act out the things I see. I don't want any of that. I just..." He burst into tears for a third time. "I feel so ashamed." Suddenly, the sound of sirens blaring in the distance made both Jack and Lexy perk their heads up, and in an instant, Lexy's arms were no longer around him. They were both off the bench now and standing up straight. They quickly exchanged a confused, horrified glance with one another. One by one, a swarm of police officers began running into the park towards them. When they reached them, they went straight for Jack, and without hesitation, one of the police officers tackled him to the ground. In the span of an instant, the police officer had Jack rolled over on his stomach with his hands behind his back and began placing them in handcuffs while Lexy watched in horror.